We have Texas State Senator Brandon Creighton here on the Chad Hasty Show. Senator, welcome back. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be on with you and good to give updates on education freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, this, the Senate, no stranger to passing education savings accounts or school choice. Tell us what this bill looks like and what it means for the for Texas school students out there.
Well, this legislation would give moms and dads opportunities to customize a path in education for their kids. It would allow the dollars to follow the students on what's best for them, and it's a very responsible framework, but it's also a big launch. It would be the largest launch in American history for a school choice program, and the education savings account would be $10,000 for students leaving a public school and attending a private school, or $11,500 for a student with a disability. For a homeschool student, it would be $2,000. So the program is capped on the dollars, and it would serve about 100,000 students in Texas, and that is also capped. And so we're starting out with a responsible framework that we can gauge success and help these students have a better and more prosperous future.
So does this bill, does this grow each year and allow more students to join in? How does that work?
No, the legislature will meet every other year and gauge the success of the program, and they'll have to make decisions at that time. Otherwise, there's nothing in the legislation that grows the dollars or the number of students served.
Okay. And who's responsible? I mean, who maintains this? Like, who is responsible for doling out the dollars, making sure the money is going to the right private school? Who's in charge of that?
We have the money man for Texas, the comptroller, Glenn Hager's office, handling the establishment of the framework. It's not running through Texas Education Agency. In fact, none of the investment in the education savings accounts comes from public education dollars. It's actually funded out of the surplus. And that comptroller managed framework that will rely on providers and certain education services that are pre-approved to help prop up the framework and help these families day-to-day with their education savings account.
So is every private school going to be eligible for this? Can private schools opt out of this? Can a student use this for any type of private school that's out there as long as they accept the dollars?
Private schools can certainly opt out in the sense that, they have say and discretion over who they admit and who they do not admit into their schools because they're private. But the accredited private schools that would like to participate, and there are many of them, right, they will be already approved by signing up with the program through the comptroller's office, and then unaccredited schools can also apply, and they just would only qualify for the lower amount of $2,000 per student per ESA recipient. The recipient of the education savings account, that would be determined by a lottery pick because, just to be fair, we would, make sure that a framework was set up where there could be no favoritism in how a student was chosen, and 80% of the money used would be prioritized for students with a disability and students that are income vulnerable, low-income students.
All right. Very good. Now, one thing that we have seen in the past, or at least heard concerns about, are what strings are attached, and I've heard from some senators in the past that, hey, anytime the government gives out money, there's always going to be strings attached to that money. Are there any strings attached? Whether this goes to a private school, whether it goes to a homeschool, Are there any strings there that any way for I guess for the government to to either monitor or say yes, this is working, not working, anything like that?
There are protections in the bill for religious liberties and government against government interference in the lives of homeschool families, and also the same protections for private schools. So we're not going to design a bill that passes on any strings in the Senate. Of course, the accreditation and the approvals and making sure that those that are helping these students learn have a background check, a criminal background check, and that they're safe to be around students that they're supporting. So, for instance, a tutoring agency, as an example, those are different services allowed within the education savings account, and there would have to be approvals there. But this is a voluntary program. You don't have to participate. You don't have to leave a public school. It's only if you choose to apply, and the same goes for homeschools and private schools.
What do you say to those? And I've seen it on social media. I'm sure you have as well. In fact, I'm sure some of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle were saying that this is going to destroy public education, which we haven't seen in any other state that's done this. But they say it's going to destroy public ed. It's going to take away from public education. What do you say to those folks?
I think that's a sad and tragic narrative that, unfortunately, some teacher organizations are manufacturing and scaring teachers with, and public school stakeholders across the state. There are 74 school choice programs across 32 states in America under Democrat and Republican governors. There's absolutely zero evidence of any harm to public schools. In fact, Florida schools, after school choice passed, went from near the bottom in ranking their public schools to number one in about 6 different metrics. There are many studies showing savings to public school accounts and funds at the state level that provide that type of funding for their budgets. Student outcomes have gone up, safety has gone up, college readiness has gone up. But I just don't understand why those divisive types of manufactured attacks are there, other than there are certain people that care more about institutions, control, politics, and money than they do about the students.
Do you have any concern in looking into the future? Let's say this is extremely popular and does well, and the legislature comes back in 2 years and says, hey, we want to put more money into this, and maybe 2 years after that, hey, let's put more money into this. The question is, does money eventually run out? When it comes, we've got a surplus now. Times may not always be as good in the future. Is there a worry about the state being able to afford everything that we need to pay for in the future?
It's a great question. I mean, I would say that there's nothing more important that we need to invest in than our future workforce and college readiness and customizing these, paths in education for students that need something other than what a public school is offering, and there are many of them. So I would say first that should be our top priority, but you're right. We may not always have a surplus, and Texas is a prosperous state, and our tax base is growing. The gross receipts on sales tax is growing, and we'll have to continue to watch this program for success and decide at that time if we want to invest later in it. Arizona started with 300 students. Florida started with 17,000 students. We're starting with 100,000 students. So we have plenty on our plate to gauge as a success and a model for the country.
But before I let you go, how confident are you that the House will pass a school choice bill? May not be exactly the same one that you guys have, and then you iron out the differences. But how confident are you that school choice will pass out of the House in this session?
I'm confident that it'll pass this session. There are a lot of new faces. Sometimes it takes the legislature to catch up a little bit with the will of the people and the expectations of our moms and dads and our families. And I believe that we're there. We have to work out the details. And the House is getting organized on the opposite side of the building and setting up committees. And I believe that we'll be more aligned on our goals to deliver education freedom than people may expect. I'm excited about it, and I'm expecting success.
Very good. Before I let you go, and I've had questions from teachers just yesterday who were asking, are we going to see teacher pay raises? Are we going to see more money being put into public ed? I know we've heard some people talk about that coming into this session. What do you think?
We're going to have historic funding for public schools. We normally add about $2 billion of new money for public schools. We're north of $8 billion in new money for our public schools in the base budget. The total amount of funding will be close to $100 billion for public schools. So when you extrapolate that across 5.3 million public school students, that's over $18,000 a student. I think teachers will have an across-the-board pay raise and incredible bonus incentives and more rights and protections to keep them safe in the classroom. It's going to be harmonious, and it always should have been, on getting all of these goals accomplished for our students in Texas.
Very good. Very good. Good to hear that. And I like the last part, too, about getting school discipline back into the classrooms. We desperately need that. Senator, thank you so much for your time today. Let's keep in touch throughout the session and see how things are going.
Always appreciate these invitations, and I'll be back to report soon.
All right. Sounds great. So thank you very much. That's Texas State Senator Brandon Creighton.